We've had all kinds of really great stories from legendary authors like yourself of long running series regulars talking about the creation of their names, how they first came to them. Where did Richard Sharp first arrive to you as the right name for this lead character?
He was a rugby player, a great, great rugby player. He didn't have an E on his name. It was Richard Sharp without the E. And he played for Cornwell and for England. And I tried, I can remember when I wrote the first Sharp book, and I wanted a name something like Hornblower. And I kept trying out names, trumpet whistler, God knows what else. I don't remember. And I just couldn't come up with a name. And I thought, okay, I'll name him after my hero, Richard Sharp. And then when I find the real name, I'll go through, cross out Richard and Sharp and put in whatever it is. Well, of course, it's stuck like a hook in a gill. And he's been Richard Sharp ever since.
We hear about a common theme early in an author's career where they have to be really persistent to land a literary agent. You have a pretty entertaining story about how you did just that. Would you share it with us?
When I wrote Sharp's Eagle, I sent it off to a publisher in England. And I was living in the States then. And they wrote back and made me an offer. And I knew it was not the offer I needed because I needed enough money to write the second book. And then by pure chance, I went to a Thanksgiving Day party in New York and at a friend's house or apartment. And we were overlooking Central Park East, and the Thanksgiving Day parade goes down that avenue. And I was standing on the balcony with the biggest Bloody Mary I've ever seen in my life. And the McDonald's All-America High School Band was high-stepping down beneath us. And a voice said in my ear, "They do this sort of thing frightfully well, don't they?" And I, being a brilliant conversationalist, said, "Oh, you're English?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm a literary agent." I said, "Oh, I've just written a book." And he said to that, "Fuck," turned round and walked away. So I followed him into the room and I said, "I've had an offer on my book." And his eyes lit up. And he said, "How much?" And I said, £3,000 world rights. Then he said, "It must be a fucking awful book." And he turned and walked away again. And I got him a third time. And I begged him, almost on my knees, saying, "Please read my book." He said, "Oh, dear boy, if you must," he said, "meet me at Grand Central Station, Oyster Bar, tomorrow at midday." So I did and gave him the book and had a rather awkward lunch with this man I didn't know. Went home, and that evening he called me and said, "How much money do you want?" And within 2 weeks, I had a 7-book contract. And he stayed my agent till the bitter end.
In early books in the series like Sharp's Regiment and Sharp's Siege, readers are really led firsthand through these battles with Richard Sharp right in the middle of them. It must have been quite cinematic as you were creating all that on the page.
I think it is. It's very visual. And I touch type 2, which means there's a lot of correcting going on later. Um, I mean, yeah, it's very, very visual. And I was very, very much influenced by the great Sir John Keegan in his book, The Face of Battle, where he writes not just about the shape of a battle and what happened, what was it actually like to be there? What was it like to be at Agincourt on the Somme? And you have to focus it all the way down to one person's point of view, but at the same time keep a bird's eye view of what's going on around him, which is he wouldn't have known. I mean, Sharp in most of these battles wouldn't have had a clue what was going on outside of 30 or 40 paces, and most of that was obscured by musket smoke. But my job is to give him a rather godlike power of understanding things that are happening beyond that very small area. But yeah, it's very visual.
Along the same lines, you're one of the great masters of bringing battle scenes to life realistically in books. For aspiring authors watching that might be trying to do the same and having trouble, any advice?
The first trick of writing a battle is to make sure that the reader understands the geography. I mean, when I wrote a non-fiction book on Waterloo, and the very first chapter is about the battlefield, nothing else, just the battlefield, so that when you get to the story itself, you're not forever having to leaf through the book to find a map or going to the index to find out what something is. So you start with the battlefield, and once that you think the battlefield is clearly described, then you start populating it, and then you take it all the way down to Sharp's or Outra's point of view, which is really where the excitement is, of course. And you do give them a little bit more understanding than perhaps most soldiers had of the thing, because they're going to have to do something heroic, otherwise there's no point in being in a book.
You surround Sharp with so many memorable supporting cast characters that he fights alongside during his extensive military career. Any favorites you most enjoyed writing personally?
Again, it's all part of this process of writing to find out what happens. I mean, I can remember there was one book, I have no idea which book it is, where I needed a convenient general to give Sharp an order. So I made up Major General Nairn. And he was only supposed to be in the book for about 3 pages. He basically took the book over. He was so memorable a character. And that's wonderful when that happens. But, you know, I don't know. I've never thought about how do you create a character. I mean, I just hope that I see them in my head, I let them speak, and with any luck, they catch fire.